Back in 2013, my husband and I lived in El Paso, Texas. Oh, and I hated the weather really bad. We'd been there about 7 years because it's hot all the time. It's a dry, hot heat, you know, so they say that's better. It's plus, we didn't have any family really living nearby. It was a 4-hour, 5-hour drive. You know, they're young, they work, that kind of stuff. So we started thinking about where we could retire and live on our Social Security and not have to get into our savings. Thinking, you know, with retirement coming up and, you know, but we didn't want to just live. We wanted to live well. Unfortunately, we had trained ourselves to live well even when we couldn't afford it. So, we decided that we had to find, I looked in the U.S. and there just really wasn't anything much that we could exist, but it would be like month to month and it would just not be what we wanted to do. Oh, so over the next several months, we decided whether we wanted to live in another country, and it became a burning issue. So it was like, well, would it be, if we did this, would it be, oh God, what were we thinking? Or would it be, oh my gosh, that is the best vacation I've ever had? Or would it be, oh, we found our new home? Because I really did a lot of work. But when I was working, I decided there were 4 questions I needed to ask. So this is kind of a presentation about, do you want to retire in another country? This was an experiment, so you can take notes. First of all, it had to be climate and the city size. I hate the heat hates me, so it had to be the right temperature. And do we want to be in a small town or a large town? So we had to ask those questions when we were looking. Government. We decided that it had to be at least slightly stable with, you know, we just didn't want anything that, you know, was going to explode any minute or there were really very bad human rights issues. Cost of living, major factor, right? So, it had to be a place, also, when we thought about the cost of living, is that we didn't want to have to learn the metric system if possible, and we didn't want to have to learn a new currency. Then there was language, culture, and distance, that I felt were important things. Could we learn a new language at our age? Or would we like the people? You know, what kind of people were there? And could we leave our family for extended periods of time? And we told ourselves that if it was beautiful enough and wonderful enough, it wouldn't matter. Okay. So, get the picture. Yeah. So by early 2014, I had done a lot of research. South American countries, although had the best prices, they were too hot and humid and really questionable. Most of them had very questionable governments. Even with stable governments, most of Europe was too far or too expensive. Ecuador, however, seemed to be the only answer to the first 3 questions, and I'll get to that in just a minute, sort of at the end. But the 4th question about the culture and the distance and things, we couldn't really know till we got there. So, just to give you a picture of where Ecuador is. Does anybody need the lights? Can you see everything okay?
Sure.
Okay, that's fine. Slide, you can see where Ecuador is, and that is the Galapagos Islands off to this, where the one arrow is.
So Ecuador is that orange?
The red.
Pinkish.
Okay, the big
red,
red,
yeah, okay.
Orangey red.
Yeah,
right.
Orangey red.
Sorry.
By Peru.
Yes.
Okay.
And then, I don't know how to use this. Let's see if this works. There we go. So this is the Ecuador as a country. And you can see that what they did is that's the equator. And what they did is they showed the Galapagos Islands, but that's not where they are. They're just below the equator. They're not up there. They're down at below the, sort of on and below the equator. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Ecuador has 17 million people and is still considered a third world country. Guayaquil has a population of over 202.5 million people. It's the largest city on the west coastline, but it's very, very industrial and it's hard to get to. Remember, this is a third world country. Their roads, they're ridiculous. The second largest, Quito. So there's Guayaquil. You can see that one right there, below the word Ecuador to the left. And Quito is up at the top, right below the equator. And then I'll talk about Cuenca, which is Cuenca, that one. So Quito was founded in 1535. It's the capital of Ecuador. Hi, thanks for coming. It has about 1.7 million people, and its elevation is 9,350 feet above sea level. It's in the Andes Mountains. That's where the Andes are. It's the second highest official capital city globally, and the closest to the equator. It's only 16 miles away from the equator. However, that 16 miles, because of their roads, takes about 45 minutes. Not traffic. It's how you get there. Cuenca is south and west and has a population of about 350,000. Now this, if I can get there. No, this is not my computer, so I don't know why it's not there. Oh, there we go. Oops, I went too far. Yeah. So the circled in red is the Amazon. That is how ginormous the Amazon actually is. And you can see at the next slide.
So it's in lots of countries.
It's in lots and lots of countries.
Okay.
And this is how it is. This is what the different regions in Ecuador. So if you look where it's the green with the rain, that's all Amazon. That's how much of Ecuador is taken up by what they consider the Amazon.
Wow.
We were in the highlands, which is in the middle, and I have Quito circled up there. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of an idea. And again, they don't have the Galapagos. Well, they have them, but see how they have them in a circle, the Galapagos Islands up there? That's not really where they are because they're, I don't know, that's not very well done. I couldn't find anything that actually showed it. So let me explain, and I'm going to probably say this again, but just see, I don't know if you can see how far Cuenca is. I'm not even see. Oh, there it is. It's way down here. So although it's only 187 miles, it takes 10 hours to get there.
Oh my.
You can fly. And Guayaquil is about, it's not quite as far, but it, and it is where it's a ship's port. It's a shipping port. That's where everything comes in. It's like if we decided to move there, everything we owned, if we wanted to ship it, would come in there, and then it might take 6 months before there's no guarantees. It's a third world country. I can't really emphasize that enough, which was okay. I mean, we knew that going in. So this is the Ecuadorian flag, and this is the Quito flag. Okay. So while researching, I came across the idea of learning a language during your visit. Although my husband spoke some Spanish, mine was like muy poquito, which means very little. Actually, I knew even less Spanish than I thought I knew when we got there. But in Quito, I found a school called the Banana Spanish School. It offered a program called Homestay. That is, you would live with an Ecuadorian family for the time that you're there. We were there for 16 days. To give you an idea of the cost of living there, for 2 weeks, the stay and the lessons. The price was $15 a day per person. Okay, that's $300-ish. That included a private room, a private bath, breakfast and dinner, and the use of a washing machine. Now we were lucky because the lady that where we were, this family, that's Alicia and Gallo and her daughter, and no, sorry, that's her son-in-law next to her. Gallo is over there. That's Elisa and Gallo there, and their daughter and their little grandbaby. And the Spanish classes, face to face for 4 hours each day, was $500 each for each of us for 2 weeks. So outside tours were, our tour offered outside tours outside the city, and they were about $15 per tour per person. I understand, I did a little research, and now they're up to like, not his, but when you just look at tour, they're about $75. So and I don't know what they were then because we didn't have to ask. So off we went. You go to Miami, and it's about a 4-hour flight from Miami, so it's really not that bad to get there from the States. I thought that was pretty reasonable. This is the apartment building that they lived in. This is called a redondel. It's a roundabout, but that's the Spanish word. And up there where I have it circled is that's our window. Our bedroom, from our bedroom. Now we didn't have a door off to the balcony, but it was just right through another room, so we got to use the balcony. I have some pictures. So we were immersed in Ecuadorian culture. Alicia and Gallo had a 3-bedroom apartment. It was on the 6th floor, so thank God they had an elevator. But it did have one main bath, and with where the shower was. There was no tub, and there were 2 half baths. And they were fairly middle-class people. They weren't poor, they weren't wealthy or anything. Now this is why I keep talking about third world country, because they have no hot water heaters. If you built a new home, you might be able to get one. So what they had was an electrical water heating unit on the sink, but it was also on the head of the shower. So every time I went, I was afraid of being electrocuted. Plus, it just got hot, so you had to turn it off, and then turn it back on, and turn it off, and turn it back on. It was an experience. Alicia was kind enough to bring a bowl of hot water in the evening for me to wash my face, get makeup or whatever off. I have to be honest with you, I think I only washed my hair 3 times while I was there. Because, I'll get to that in a minute. They were retired. They were both retired. They were in their early 50s, but they had both had some medical problems. She had been a CPA, and he had owned his own business, and they didn't go into a lot of detail about that. We were required as much as possible to speak Spanish in the home. And this is not cotillion Spanish. This is a slightly, that he didn't really know what to call it, but he said it was not proper Spanish. They're idioms. Now he taught us proper Spanish, but he helped us with the idioms and the local things. Okay, so
it's like they have their own dialect, their own Spanish dialect.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
To me, dialect is about your accent. Am I?
Mm-hmm.
So
I know, like in Spain, they don't speak Spanish like they do in Mexico.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. And this is they don't speak. They don't, because the Ecuadorian people are a mixture of Spanish and Incan. Mm-hmm. They're very tiny, and you'll see an example of that. Okay, so. Yeah, this is a view off our balcony.
Oh, pretty. That's pretty.
And
pretty
there was,
church.
and I just realized that that other picture, actually we were in the window above, because I see this, that there's a balcony below us and I had forgotten that. So we were probably the next one up above. I counted the floors and I missed.
It's okay. We'll forgive you.
Thank you. This is also a view from the balcony. This is a view of the Redondel, and this is a view from just like going around the corner. But it was just magnificent. The views and everything every single day were just amazing. Okay, so now food is an issue, which we didn't talk about. That was, because whatever country you're going to, you get what you get. You can't go and live somewhere for the food, I don't think. So we had, for breakfast, we had an egg. She offered my husband two because she could see he was hungry. She made fresh fruit juice every morning. The only one we did not like was the papaya. This little puckery. So, and then pan, which is their bread. And that was something we didn't take pictures of, but you know how in bigger cities there's an ice cream parlor on every corner or a coffee shop on every corner? Well, for them it's bread. It's bread shops. They're on every corner. And this is Ecuador when we were there, and it's now been 7 years, which is actually exactly 7 years, because we were there from March the 8th through March 24th. So it's like the U.S. in the 1950s. They all want to own their own business. Everyone wants to be part of the politics. They're so friendly. They were just a wonderful people. Sorry. Because this is a poem by this man. This man's name is, oh wait, I'm not through with the food. That was one of the dinners that she served us. In the morning, the Nescafe, why I brought the Nescafe, that is their coffee. That is their coffee of choice. Every restaurant you go into, but they're in machines. They're giant machines that just gurgle it out. Had to go
Somebody's
in
got to
one.
get a picture of that.
We had to go. We stopped on the way to school every morning into a shop and got coffee because hers was so weak. It was like drinking not. I mean, it was, and you don't want to say. I mean, we didn't want to say anything. So, but what they did is they knew it was horrible too. Okay, because on the table was a shaker of powdered chocolate, and they bring you hot cream, and then you can put sugar or not. So that told me that they really knew how bad it was too. We had to be, our lunch and meal we had to have on our own. We got that on our own. Dinner was usually some kind of chicken. That's what they eat the most. There was some fish, but you can imagine how long, if you think about the map, that it took to get fish from. Now the lake fish, there were trout and things like that, but we were in someone's home, so we didn't do very much restaurant. We did, but we always had soup, salad, meat, and dessert, and usually dessert. And that's the reason I brought the plantains, because it was. She never fried them, but they were baked. And plantains are different. I don't know if you've ever had them before.
No.
They're different from bananas. They have very little flavor. And they are extremely mealy when they're cooked. It's an acquired taste. And they had them in everything. I mean, they love them. So that's why I brought the plantains. And you'll see, it's like you have this expectation, because one of them is sweet and salty, and the other one's salty, and the other one has lime. And so you guys figure out if you can tell, if you can actually taste the plantain part. Because it's like a banana, but it doesn't have a banana-ish flavor. I don't have it. That was the best I could do. Now, the reason I brought this one slide is because this is Salvatore Nicoro. He was 85 years old in 2014. I checked, he's still alive, so he's 92. He is El Poeta del Amor. You know what that means?
Poet of love.
The poet of love. And that looks like that is a picture window, right? And it's a bright, bright room. This is in his apartment, and that is he built the ship. He did all the stained glass. Behind his seat is his kitchen. If his apartment was probably about where that chair is, and it went straight back to maybe there. So he had a living room, a kitchen. It wasn't even this big. A tiny little bathroom and his bedroom. And it was packed with, he had a mast, a woman, from a ship, a small one, sitting in his living room. And he was the most amazing man. He was so generous and sweet, and
which one is he?
he's this guy right here.
The one in the blue?
The one in the blue. That's Gallo, and that's my husband, looking at me like, why are you taking this picture? So, and this is just one of his points, and the reason I took the picture is because it was in the building. It was painted on a wall in the building that where we all live. I hit it too hard. There we go. This was actually the very first thing that we came in late at night, and this was all lit up, and there was nothing open, and we really didn't see very much, but we remembered seeing this, so we went around to walking to try and find it again. So I think that these are some these are some pictures of the streets that we took just walking, because although a cab was probably almost like they said, if they charge you more than if they charge you $5, then they're charging you too much. I don't think we ever paid more than $1 or $2. It was 6 miles to Old Town, and it cost us $1 to get back. We walked, but we were so we could not. And this is just kind of a picture of the old and new, and how they try and treasure things, and they keep up.
Are they fair? Is their government fairly stable?
Oh, I'll talk about it when I get to.
Okay, never mind.
That's okay. Like I said, this is not my computer, so. There we go. This is a furniture store, if you can't tell. Can you see the giant chest? It was all carved in wood, right at the middle. I mean, I had a big picture of it, but it was just, I had to take a picture of it. I've never seen anything like that before. And there were murals like this everywhere. And we really couldn't get any information. We couldn't read Spanish that well, and there would be signs, but they didn't have stuff in English.
It looks fairly clean.
It's very clean. It's a very clean city. This was just like we walked past this every day going to school and back. And this is the Spanish school. This is this banana Spanish school. And we asked him why did you call banana? He said, nobody else has that name, and it's a B. So there aren't very many A's, and everybody sees our name. I thought, well, that's pretty smart. And you go in, we went in down like where that little sign is, where it says E, and the door's right there, and you go in, the school is all up. They live on the bottom. This is Arturo and his wife Nancy, and they run the school. They're still there. They're doing just as well as they ever did. They now have they have foreign students come, and they live and they volunteer and they do things around the city, and they find odd jobs for them, and they stay sometimes 3 and 4 months. On one of the trips we took, a German girl went with us that was there studying. But that was the patio where we took our breaks out there in their backyard. Oh, that's just, okay, so as I said, we went to school from 8 to 12, so it's half days. We could have picked evening, but we decided we would waste the day if we went to school at 1 o'clock and didn't get off. So this is how hilly, that was a picture just to kind of show you how hilly the city is. This is okay, now we're getting into I'll get to the question that you said. This is the entrance to Old Town Plaza, or Plaza Grande, or Plaza of the Independence Plaza, or Plaza de la Independencia. And like I said, it took us an hour and a half to walk 6 miles. We were tired. This is the Corondoleta Palace. This has been in existence since 1570. And it was completely remodeled in 2005. And Ecuador has had a very changing, it used to be part of Chile. No, that's not right. Anyway, it's part of one of the other countries, and they separated. And my old brain doesn't keep that stuff too much. So they became independent. Then they were taken over by dictatorship, and there were all these wars. And they finally became independent democracy in 2005. They had their presidents don't have a limit on their terms, right? So thank you. So and the same president, I think it's recently changed, but their vice president was a woman, the first vote, the first time. So they're very open-minded. And we went inside. We did get to go inside there, but I don't really have. They wouldn't let us take very many pictures. So. This is their Statue of Liberty. That's what they call it, and it is gigantic. I mean, it's like 30. It's huge. 30 feet or something. It was really, really tall. And it's in a gigantic. Oh, I threw this one in. I'm really not touching him. But it's like England. They have a changing of the guards. We didn't see that. They weren't doing it that day. But they can't move. They can't smile. They can't do anything. It was really interesting. And of course people tried and everything. He actually didn't eat. You can see his eyes are straight ahead. He did not. But I promise I didn't. That would have been embarrassing.
So you say.
Uh-huh.
Which town is it?
I'm sorry?
Which town is it?
This is in Quito. This is all Quito. We didn't go to any other city while we were there. Then, okay, this is a picture of the church, which is called Metropolitan Cathedral since 1535, and then about I think 2016, I think it was, they changed it to the First Cathedral. So that's what it's called now. And this is one of the side entrances that you go in, and you can see the steeple in the back. And of course, this is a very Catholic country. I mean, it's predominant. I'd say 98% of the people are Catholic. So we stopped taking pictures of churches because it's all I was going to have is pictures of churches. And this has just showed a little bit better view of the stairs going up and how ornate it is, and it's quite beautiful. And this was the palace. That is, they do their government there, but the president also lives there. The vice president lives around the corner on a back street. It's on the back of that you have to go to another street to get to. But this was just a courtyard, an open courtyard that we just took a chance and kind of went in and looked around, and we kept seeing them as we went. They're just quite lovely. The colors, they're very colorful. Okay, so that's the government is a democracy, and it's one person, one vote. So it's an actual democracy, not like we are as a republic. So we met this man who said he's from Texas, and he knew everything. He'd lived there for 25 years in Old Town, and he wanted to take us around. And pretty soon we realized that we were sort of being duped, because he was not telling us anything that wasn't on the signs. He basically was reading this. So we went, well, thank you very much. We think we'll go on our way. And he said, well, now I told you this was free, but a donation will really work. And so my husband said, well, here's $5. I mean, we know what the economy is, and since he really didn't do anything, he was insulted, and he said, no, he said, you have to give me $10. So he and my husband had a little few words, and we left. And didn't give me any more money. But that happens. You know, you're a tourist. We were being tourists that day. Because I think by then, this was just one of the days that we, in the afternoons, that we went straight from school, stopped and had lunch somewhere, and there's cafes everywhere. And I guess if I had to say, the most disappointing thing was the food. It's very bland. They do not use spices. They do not use peppers. They do not use any kind. They don't use red pepper, bell pepper, any kind of pepper. So it's not the Spanish diet. It is the Incan type diet. There's a lot of corn. One of the best meals we had, all the food we had at her house was delicious. And one meal that was very strange, we had potato soup. It was delicious, but there was popcorn on the table. Popcorn. And we thought, this is funny. Is that dessert? What in the world? They sprinkle it on their potato soup. And it gives it salty little crunch.
Oh, how fun.
I did it a couple of times after I got home. It just wasn't the same. It was not the same. So the next weekend trip then, our first weekend trip, so we've been there and we've been doing all these things just during the week. This was our first weekend trip. And it's a trip to Otavalo and Cocachi. Oh, shoot. I wish I had that map up here. I could show you. So they're north. They're north. And this is the major church in Otavalo. It's just, they're just so magnificent. We went inside, but again, but Otavalo is known. The town itself, they call themselves the largest outdoor market in the world. And I'll tell you what, I think I actually believe them. It is at least 10 miles long.
Wow.
Now, it's not a straight 10 miles. I mean, when you go in and you'll come into and and it's all open air, see, but you'll come in and it'll feel like a building because there's a slot there and a slot there and a slot here, and they're just crammed with merchandise. So you can see that it's all of that is open air. I don't even know what those stores were. I don't even remember looking at those stores because it was just amazing. This is my husband, and it makes him look like he has a very tiny, ginormous head, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't. That's the hat he actually bought, and it's a normal size. This was a child's hat. He just put it on for fun. But I do have a story to tell you about the Panama hat. The Panama hat, which is renowned around the world, was not made in Panama. It was made in Ecuador. And the Ecuadorians went to work in masses at the Panama Canal. And the hats became so popular that everybody wanted one. They started bringing them back and selling them. But because they didn't know who these people were, they said that it was a Panama hat. Everybody that bought the hats then came back and it was a Panama hat. And I brought that one. My grandson loved it so much that he confiscated it. So it has the label inside and stuff. But that was just a fun little thing. But we didn't know that. And they had shops and shops. So here's more. Here's more of it. It's just on and on and on. It was gorgeous. And I tried to find, because my camera didn't really take very good pictures of enclosed, because it was not a very good camera. And it wasn't a cell phone back then to take pictures. So we moved on from the market. See, I'm trying to get, okay, the market. This is a statue of the Incan general Ruminawi. And he presided over the Incans in the 1500s. And he was a warrior, and he was very well liked, and they put up a monument to him. There's another church. So, like I said, they're everywhere. But you can see that there's big squares, and there's just people everywhere all the time. And this was a fairly small town. Now, the reason I took this picture, that's the German girl that went with us on the tour. This just sort of looks like a benign thing, right? It's just like we're walking around like out in the country here. This is the entrance to their national parks. This is how unpretentious this country is. because where we are going is to the, I'm never going to say this right. I always tell myself I'm going to do this. The Cascade de Peguse, which is it's just basically a waterfall, but it's quite magnificent, and it is. If you go online and you look and you put Ecuadorian waterfalls, this is one of the major ones you're going to find. And I thought my little camera did pretty good with these.
Looks pretty to me.
That was a little further away there, but that's closer up. It's just, and then the next one.
Next one, she's in it.
Well, I took the other one. Where did it go? Did I go past it? Probably. But I want you to see it because there's people there, so you can see how.
You lost it.
Yeah, I missed it. So
There's the
you can
people.
see the people down there, and it was like, it was the most calming because they say like the ions around a waterfall like this, it's very powerful. That and we got wet just standing there. There was not a lot of wind either.
The spray,
The
yeah.
spray, it was so okay, now. How are we doing on time? Not as good as I thought. Okay, this is just basically the countryside between Otavalo and Cotacachi. Cotacachi, well,
Look at that.
now see it's going the other, oh, frick.
What'd you say?
Frick. This is Cotacachi. Cotacachi is actually a very, very well-known leather. They call themselves the leather capital of the world. They're not really, but they call themselves that. This was a very commercial. They didn't have the stalls, the markets, or anything like that. But a $75 sandal here, handmade sandal here, that you might get in Mexico, was like 25 bucks. I had a pair, but they were put away for my summer. See how much more commercial that is. The bustling. Now, this is one of the other remarkable things about Quito, is that they have city parks. This is the Carolina Park. We decided to go to the Botanical Gardens, and it was walkable distance, so we started out, and we came upon this park. And it said on the map that we had that this is how you go, so we did. This is Carolina Park. It's 165 acres.
A small part.
And we were in the library, there was a bookstore across that we found, and so we went in and I took a picture out the window just to kind of give a little bit of depth. And then this is a commercial picture I did go on. That's how big it is. That when you're looking out and it's surrounded, it's like bigger than Central Park from what I understand. So, but the things that they did, like a tree, they just carved the tree. They had Zumba classes. They had food vendors. They had bands. It was like a festival. We thought, it was like we would have a festival, but it's every weekend. It's like that. They said it's like that all the time. This is a high school band. They were practicing. They just come out. They were skaters. They were dancers. It was just wonderful. So here is obviously the Jardin Botanical de Quito. I have a horrible accent, but it's basically their botanical garden. I could do one whole hour on this garden. It was just unbelievable. It was so beautiful. These are orchids, and then they have them. That's what the orchids look like. They're just like perfect. The climate there's soil because of all the volcanic ash, because there are volcanoes everywhere. And there's only one or two that have erupted recently. But
Do they get a lot of water, or is it dry there?
no, it's they have a season, and it's like it could rain in the day. It could be. I think later I may not get to it. But they had a saying You get every season in one day.
Like
You get,
Kansas.
you get
Like
summer.
Kansas.
Well, no, because they don't have snow. I mean, their average temperatures are 70 to 50, 75 to 50. But remember, they are 16 miles from the equator. The sun rises at 6 o'clock in the morning and sets at 6 o'clock every single day. So there's a consistency, you know, in the temperature. It never freezes. Now, up on the mountaintop, it does.
Did you have to be worried about being in the higher altitude?
When we went up, we went to this, at the end, I'll show you that, yeah, and I did get some altitude. I didn't have any problem. Don got sick one day on a Sunday and a Monday. He didn't do very well, we didn't do very much, but this is how big things grow. These are leaves off this plant. And, this was a tree, just an ordinary street tree. I mean, they have them growing, but this was the chard. Has anybody seen chard that big?
Swiss chard?
That's purple cabbage, and the chard is over here.
Wow.
And then this one is the aloe vera. That fence is 4 feet tall.
Wow.
So the richness, there's a whole area that was north of that we could not get to because there just weren't any roads. They were working on trying to, where they plant everything, except they do not grow coffee and they do not grow grapes. They do not have wine. There's no wine. And in fact, that was one of the decisions that I didn't put on here as to why we're not living there, because a bottle of wine that costs $8 here is like $35 or $40 here, because they have to pay import tax on everything. And they just don't drink a lot. They're not a people, they don't, you know, people who party are the younger people, tourists, and they have a whole big tourist area. This one is just a little restaurant that we stopped in. They claimed to be an American restaurant, and it was called Pinup, and it had all 50s. They played 50s music, and they had American food, not. It was, a cheeseburger was, I don't even know how to describe it, but I mean, it was a taste of home. It just kind of made us, you know, feel like we knew who we were and that kind of thing. So, our next tour then, this is the most important, and I'll hurry through some of this, but these are the craters. Those are clouds. That's clouds back there. And, I don't think he knew any names, but this is the same, to give you a better perspective as to how deep and these are craters of the volcanoes that are no longer active, and they turn them into farms and things. This is one of the views on the way.
Wow.
The topography is just amazing.
Wow.
And that is one of the crater lakes. Now, there was a special one that we couldn't go to because it had rained so much, and that, to answer your question, they'll have periods of rain that flood and the roads, because everything's bad, you just couldn't get there that day. Now, this is what's called a pucara. This is a rumicucha, and it means the rumi is the stone, and the cucho is a nook or a corner. And these are all over Ecuador and Peru, and this was the Incan. This particular one was a residential and a ceremonial ground.
Oh, wow.
And this is up. This is looking back. The other one was looking up, and this one's looking back down. So you can see why it was called a. That's what I did. Okay. It's a fortress. They have a. And that was like one side. So they were completely. You couldn't get to them except one direction, and that's why they were called a fortress. And as we were leaving to go to the equator, we came upon this little parade, and it was just the locals in the town. It turned out to be the spring equinox, and we didn't know. I mean, we had no idea. We hadn't seen anything. There's no big festivals or anything about it, but they just were it was just a tiny little local village, and they had their parade.
Oh, cool.
It was really cool to see, because this is how they, how the Ecuadorian people, it's a lot like Peru as far as dress, native, if they do native. Sorry, my cat's doing this. That's just a little more of the parade. And this was a little town called La Luz, and this whole area is called the San Antonio district. And I don't know if you can see, but these are pig's feet. And that was the pig's head, the boar's head. And it was, honestly, it was the least gross one that I could take a picture of to show how they serve it. It was pretty gruesome along the street. Okay, now here we are at the Tata del Mundo, which is the middle of the world, the equator. It was quite an impressive, you know how you've been somewhere and it's like you've heard of it and it's like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then you're going, well, that's what this was like. Because I'm on the north side of the equator and he's on the south side. And we are going like this. We were pulled toward each other. It was really bizarre. They did this water thing. Here's an egg. The equator is the only place in the world that you can put the tip of an egg, balance on a tip of a nail, an egg on the tip of a nail. Because all of the liquid inside the egg is pulled to one point, and it allows you to do that. There were about 20 people in our tour, and they had 5 of them doing, and only one person was actually able to do it. Because it's really harder than it looks, but you can do it. And then this is Don. You see the lady there, and she's balancing, and they're going like this. He couldn't do it. It was hard. He said he could actually feel the he couldn't even explain to me what it felt like. This was a sample of a native hut back in the 1500s. You can see there's a picture of the lady that lived in it. It's a reconstruction of her hut. And it just gave a bunch of examples of, this is shrunken heads. Not a very good picture, but I wasn't sure I wanted to really good. Now, I hope this doesn't offend anyone, but I did want to show this because this is a depiction of an Amazon man back probably in the 1800s. It was wax. And they had pictures from natives that had, when they started, going into the Amazon and coming back with evidence and things. And do you guys notice anything in the middle of his body there? There's a string around his waist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, the guy really kind of had a hard time. He didn't want to embarrass anyone. Mm-hmm. But he said, when you're running naked through the Amazon, the branches can hurt really bad. So they tied themselves up to protect themselves. And it was beautiful. I mean, he was so beautiful. But I just thought, I'd never even thought about that. Okay, this is the guinea pig, which sounds like a silly thing maybe to even have pictures of. I mean, they were in a cage running around. They are a revered animal, or fowl, whatever they are. Rat. I don't know, what are they? Rodent? They're rodent. They are also a delicacy. They eat them.
When I looked up Ecuadorian food, that's mostly what I saw. And they serve them like all.
Yeah, right. So we did try it, and we understood why they kept it for very special occasions. Because it's really nasty. It's tough. There's not very much meat. I mean, one thing is like they're eating a rat. I mean, so they do have it. It's something that they serve on holidays. It's usually
Thank you for not bringing one.
You're welcome.
For us to sample.
Oops. Go back. We're almost done. This I took a picture of because, and that's sort of an exaggeration. However, this is their burial. This is the way they buried. The Incans buried back in the day. And they crumbled their bodies, crunched them all and stuffed them in a pot. And they also had a ceremony where, like they did in Egypt and some of the older, where they had a ceremony, the wife died, and the wife was also, she couldn't ever marry anyone else, so she went in with it. Women have been treated badly. Now, the reason I took this picture is because the next thing that we did, the last thing on our last day, is we decided to go to this thing called the Telefarico. And it is a tram. And it goes up to a mesa on Pichincha Mountain. And that is Pichincha, that straight in the middle, the very top. Now, we didn't go all the way, but I wanted you to get a view of Quito, and the city looking back at that. I didn't take this picture, but, and teleférico is a common term they use for gondola trams that go, take people up. But they put a QO on it to make it specific to Quito. This is traveling up.
Wow.
It goes to the top east side of the volcano. To something called the Cruz Loma, which is basically we call them mesas and things. We went from 10,000 feet, approximately 10,000 feet, to 13,000 feet. And it took about 20 minutes on the gondola. And this is a picture. I took this picture because it was kind of part of it was a foggy day, and you can see
Looks
that.
hazy, yeah, it looks hazy.
And what was really fascinating to me was this picture that I took. When you go and you look at you want to see images, this exact picture is, everybody takes this picture. It was kind of unusual. Now, this is a commercial picture, but I just wanted you to see, it gave a little bit better picture of what the gondola is. There we are up on the mesa, and we're looking down. That's Quito behind us. So you've seen it now sort of from both directions. And we did this on a Sunday. It was the last full day we had there. And this is the one of the walks. Now you can hike and go all the way, and it's in the very background. You can't even see it because it's covered with clouds. And then this is what we found when we got up to that church. The horses had been to church that morning. It was like, what? We just thought that was really interesting. And this was Saturday night, the night before, that the family had taken us to one of the nightclubs. And we had a blast. It was really a lot of fun. We had mulled wine, and it was divine. They heat it up and they put all these spices and cinnamon and stuff.
Yeah.
It's really good. I'd had mulled wine, but it didn't taste like that. So that's the end of my slides. And I'm just I said, so the trip answered most of our questions. The climate and the city size, the climate was perfect, but we decided we would, even if we were going to do it, we wouldn't live in Quito. We'd probably go to Cuenca. They both have extremely large expat communities where people from other countries move, and they kind of get in groups together. The government was very stable and had a growing economy. The cost of living, very cheap. They use U.S. currency. Now, they make their own money, but it's based on U.S. currency. So that was like, yay. We learned that we could learn the language. The sweetest, most generous people. Every shop we went into, and I had a translator little thing that we had that was a voice translator that we tried to use. They were very nice about that. But if you moved to a foreign country, this particular one, when we looked at it, you had to stay in the country for 6 months, and you had to leave for 2 to 3 weeks. Then you had to come back and stay for 6 months, and that took 2 years if you wanted dual citizenship. And while we were there, our children said no. They did not want us to go. Plus, there was this fifth question that we forgot to ask. Was my husband really, because I had already retired, and I had a little business on the side, I was doing things, but I was a psychotherapist for 35 years. My husband wasn't ready to retire and not be able to play golf, because he's an avid golfer and they have no courses. We can imagine what it would cost to where would you put a course in Quito anyway? We didn't know about Cuenca, but there were courses, but they were private. It was private clubs. So in the end, I didn't want to move somewhere where he couldn't play golf either. So, to get my drift. We really did love it. And, you know, I kind of hope we can return, you know, at some point, because we did really, the people call you back. I mean, they're just so sweet and so lovely. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did I get enough time?